Hello, I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and welcome to Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. Today we talk about endings and new beginnings with Tony Jones. As inspiring as finding your muse can be, sometimes it's just as important to let your muse go to find yourself. Spiritualist, author, and guide to wild places, Tony Jones is going to share some of his thoughts about changes in his life. Now, his life has been an open book filled with wonderful stories he's shared in social media, articles and books he's authored, and presentations to enthusiastic crowds where I first experienced him. In short, he has been the center of attention. He's learned some lessons. He wants to share them with us, and he's making some changes based on what he's learned. Tony, welcome to the show. Hey, tell us a little bit about this new sort of space you're finding after all these sort of really, I guess, media-filled days you've had over the last few years.
Peter, it's great to be back on your show. Thanks for having me. I'm 57 and an empty nester. My kids are all successfully launched out into the world. They're doing great things. And like you said, yes, I have been kind of I sometimes refer to myself as a B-list Christian celebrity. I probably slipped to a C-lister in the last few years, in my 50s. And I'm just frankly tired. I'm tired of chasing book sales and chasing website clicks and chasing, I mean, no offense, chasing podcast interviews and everything else. I've been doing it for a long time. I was with a friend this last week, and we've been friends for many, many years. We did a book tour together. We did an all summer 35 city book tour in the summer of 2008. And we were joking about remembering when we joined Twitter that summer, sitting on the RV between going from one town to another in the middle of, it was called the Church Basement Roadshow. We were just doing stand-up bits at different in church basements. And we joined Twitter. You think back, it's hard to believe that in 2008, Twitter was just starting, and and every time you'd get a new follower or 10 new followers, oh my gosh, look at all these people we can reach with our message. And so all that to say, I've been at it a long time, and it's exhausting. It's just exhausting.
What's interesting is that in listening to some of the things that led me, and you didn't solicit this show. I sought you out, so
Yeah.
we'll
Yep.
clear the air on that one. I've just recently retired, but the show's not about me. But I also know a lot of people that go through the process, and all of a sudden, what you were talking about was sort of a resonance of on steroids of what a lot of people go through later in life, where they're the center of attention. They have the responsibility, their people, their friends, their rituals, all the stuff that they do the same way. I mean, not necessarily reaching for likes, but reaching for love, reaching for affection, reaching for meaning. And then there's this precipice that comes along where, for you, it was volitional. You said, okay, I'm tired, I'm going to stop. But now for people retiring, sometimes it's, I'm tired, I'm going to stop now. Other times it's, okay, you're forced to stop. And yet they're going through the exact same challenges. There's not much difference between, I don't care, ABC list celebrity or just the average regular person encountering a major change in life from being the center of attention in many different scenarios and sort of stages in life to all of a sudden having to find value in just being themselves.
Yeah, so many things, Peter, we can talk about over the course of our conversation here. That there were multiple converging streams for me that led me to the Substack post I wrote, which was what you read and reached out to me about. But I'll just say, we can get into those. I think some of them would be illuminating, but I just want to jump to the end of the story. And that I probably received 30 plus emails from people as a response to that Substack post saying, I'm 57 and a half. I think by the time I'm 60, I'm no longer going to be a public figure. I'm going to step aside from all my social media. I'm going to stop writing. I'm going to stop speaking at conferences. And here's what's amazing. I kind of thought in my own hubris, people would, oh no, Tony, your voice is too important. You can't, no, don't ever quit. But instead, the overwhelming response, and most of it was from guys, although some women also wrote me, was I feel the same. I'm totally exhausted. And I'll just say one was I'm one guy wrote me, I'm a 53-year-old Lutheran pastor. Every week I get emails about read the latest book on how to revitalize your church. Go to this conference and learn new tools and tricks on how to bring your church back to life. And he said, I'm tired and I'm never going to be able to revitalize a church. Now I'm just playing out the string on my career as a pastor.
Maybe that's also the idea that one has to revitalize themselves first before they
Right.
revitalize something outside of them. Hey, we're going to take a short break. We come back, we're going to continue this conversation because it's important. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss this.
Malware and bots and worms, oh my. The wild, wild web can be a scary and complex place. And as our digital world expands, so too are the threats. Watch out! Trojan horse. That's why at Mediacom, we take security very seriously and monitor our networks around the clock to stop threats before they can affect you. Not today, Rude Kid. Not all internet is created equal. We build ours to keep you connected and protected.
We're talking with Tony Jones, a celebrity of what note? That's not relevant. He's been out there in the public, but things happened, things that stimulated him to think about his life, his space, and where he wanted to go next. And boy, does that sound familiar for many of us as we reach maturity. What were some of the triggers or, maybe enlightenments you felt on this journey?
Yeah. Well, a couple things. I mean, one is as you know, because we talked about it last year, I had a book come out that was my memoir. In some ways, to write a book like that, that's a memoir, it's kind of a culmination of things. I know some people write, a follow-up memoir and then another follow-up memoir. I don't plan to do that. I kind of put everything I had into that book. So there's kind of a natural ending after writing a book like that that's so self-revelatory. And then I'll tell you a couple things that are maybe not quite as sublime as that, but uh my kids, I mentioned those in our first segment. My kids are doing great. And my oldest kid in particular has had come into a bunch of business opportunities at age 25 and is just absolutely crushing it. And I'm feeling so much vicarious joy watching him thrive after, and we talked about this last time I was on, after a pretty rough childhood that included a high conflict divorce and a custody fight that he was caught in the middle of even more than the other two kids. And yet here he is 10 years later, just, you know, has the world by the horns. Okay, so take that as one kind of bookend, Peter. And then the other bookend I got, and this is, you know, this kind of stuff happens. It's not earth shattering or anything, but I got an email about a conference this fall. And it's a conference about the future of Christianity and how to revitalize Christianity. And from a very well known Christian author and speaker, somebody who many of your listeners would or viewers would know the name, which I'm not going to say, but and then I looked, and that person is in his mid 80s. And then I looked at the entire speaker lineup, and everyone was over 60. Most of them were in their 70s. And I thought to myself, they're not the future of Christianity. Why are they not stepping aside? Why are they not platforming younger pastor leaders, younger authors? It's like, and I wrote about this in the post a little bit, and this is no offense to baby boomers, but it is definitely my experience that a lot of baby boomers are really white knuckling a lot of leadership roles. And those of us Gen Xers who are now in our 50s, I mean, Peter, it's very likely that we'll never have a Gen X president. that will skip from baby boomer presidents to a millennial president. And I just feel like in many spheres of American life, the baby boomers are refusing to relinquish control of a lot of the parts of our society that affect our lives. And I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that guy who's in his 70s still trying to get speaking gigs and still trying to stay relevant. I want millennials and Gen Z to have their time in the spotlight like I did.
You know, it's fascinating because I recently retired at age 70.
Mm.
And it was symbolic simply because I was able to our board, myself, our leadership, we turned over the entire organization, which was the Partnership for Healthy Iowa, to leadership roughly half of our age.
Awesome.
And I felt like I had to do it because I didn't want to be one of those white knuckling guys. Not that I didn't love what I do.
Right.
But I am just not relevant to the future generations anymore.
Right.
I mean, if they can find relevance in something I write, say, or share, that's fine. But it's not going to dominate their way of coping with the world. I'm a little sidebar now.
Right, Peter. And if they want to bring you back or bring me back because they think there's wisdom in our elders, they have something to share for us. As if we come because we've been invited back in, that's very different than us saying we're going to continue to set the agenda until we're in our graves.
Right.
We,
well, and then the fear that goes along with that, like, what happens if I just drop off the face of the earth with no preparation, with no transition? I'm going to feel much worse than handing this over and starting a new sort of a leaf. I get that. Now, before we go to a break, though, I have found that especially from a faith-based point of view, repackaged not just hope, but belief that, my life is getting better.
Mm.
That in this different, it's emptier, and it's emptier of things I thought were the most important things. It's full of a lot of material junk that I'm trying to get rid of.
Yeah, right.
And I have a lot of unsorted files in my head about projects, ideas, and things I would have, could have, should have done. But generally the overall satisfaction is better at once the little bit of trauma sort of work themselves out. How are you feeling about that?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, there are a couple things. One is I think that people who are public figures, even regionally public figures, maybe like you and me, rarely do people who are public figures get to call the shots on when they are no longer a public figure. Usually it's decided for them by the market or the crowd or the news manager of the TV station fires the weatherman because he just looks a little too old on camera now, or whatever the case may be. And so to have some agency in that for myself and to say, by age 60, I plan to basically step aside and not be a public figure anymore. That trauma for sure. I mean, a little bit like I posted it and I thought, what have I done? What have I done? I've cut my legs out from under me, and how am I ever going to get speaking gigs if people know that I'm ready to hang it up? But the longer I went and the more positive feedback I got, which I've already mentioned, it really affirmed that I was doing the right thing.
And that's a great point on which for us to go to a break and continue our conversation with Tony Jones. See you all after the break. You don't want to miss this.
Well, because it's the best. And that's true, because I've thought about that. I mean, definitely the fastest. And the biggest thing I hear most people talk about is the stability of it.
MediaCom's network is very reliable. We have a lot of programs in place that can monitor kind of issues that arise. That way we can fix them before they reach the customer.
Trust the pros. Get Extreme Internet starting at $9.99 a month for a year.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and we're talking with Tony Jones about life and new beginnings. Tony, there are so many facets of our existence. We have an intellectual sort of drive that keeps us doing stuff. we have an emotional center, we have a spiritual center that we probably like to think is sort of dominant as an overseer of our lives. And then we have, of course, intuitive reasoning, which is sort of a bailout, but it works. How do you, what happens to you comparing like intellect and emotions? What were some of the changes that you had to embrace or maybe feel or work through with that balance between them, which I know for me at least definitively shifted with this idea of this change at later in life?
I think so often our self-perception is erroneous, it's off. And I remember this happened a couple of years ago. I was with a dear friend of mine who lives in Jackson, Mississippi. And I don't know, I can't remember what we were doing exactly, but I made some self-deprecating comment about like, I've never really written a bestseller. None of my books, have sold like exactly like maybe as much as I wanted. Now I'm about to come out with this new book, and he turned. It was like maybe we were on a walk, and he stopped and turned and looked, and he said basically, "Shut up! I've never written a book. I've dreamed about writing a book, and I've never done it. And you've written 14, so shut up." I don't want to hear you complain about how your books haven't, like, you've done what you wanted to do, basically. How do you not see that? And it was only in hearing myself through his ears, seeing myself through his eyes in that moment that I thought, wow, yes. Why can I not just be satisfied, happy with myself? I mean, most people, oh my gosh, they hear, what do you do for a living? I write. What do you write? Articles? No, mainly books. How many have you written? 14. 14 books. Oh my God. People say that. And to me, it's just like, well,
yeah,
that's
what's your house in the Hamptons like? That's what
yeah, right.
Thinking. Yeah, right.
And people are like, wow, that's incredible. I've always thought about writing a book. Or I have an uncle who wrote a book one time, And so I've then had to think about, okay, I need this. Since I was very young, I wanted to write. I wanted to be a writer. And I'm like, okay, I'm a writer. I'm writing. I've written all these books. How can I not be satisfied with my own success? How can I not know that I leave a legacy in the written word that I've spent so much time on, regardless of how many people bought those books, And so that was even that little moment when Ryan said that to me, it was just a wake-up call. And frankly, Peter, I mean, I'm going to keep writing, but I've always been so intimidated to write fiction. And nonfiction I could do. I thought, I can't write fiction. I'm not creative enough. I'm not smart enough, whatever. But now I'm writing fiction, and I'll probably publish it all pseudonymously, under a nom de plume, rather than in my own name. But that's it. I think another thing that's happened is I've freed myself up to spend. I'll just say this. I was talking to a friend about this, and she said, she's my same age, mid-50s. She said, I want the last third of my life to look so different than the middle third of my life has looked. And I thought, oh, that's another good way to think of it and say it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've had the most blessed fortunes. I mean, I should believe in angels on my shoulder because, yeah, I mean, they're bad things. There's always bad things you can talk about,
sure,
and fears and insecurities. But I mean, I had a blessed life, and then sometimes you feel like, am I upsetting the apple cart? Am I trying to reach for one more brass ring? That's totally selfish. Now, I mean, because I am now making the judgments. I'm not writing to a market. I'm not speaking to a group. Everything is now filtered through my heart and my place, which for me also challenges the fact as to how brutally on an emotional level honest was I in my work and how much was tailored. And I'm going to take a break, and I have to come back and hear some of your discussions about that, finding that authentic self in the midst of all this, because I think that's going to be some inspiration our viewers want to see. So let's take a short break, and we'll come back with that. Thank you, Tony.
If, like most people, you love your phone, like can't eat, can't sleep, can't not have it by your side,
My phone.
or you'll be totally lost, kinda love, but you don't love your big cell phone bill or spotty reception, check out Mediacom Mobile. Unbeatable nationwide coverage on a reliable 5G mobile network. Plus, we've got some really incredible prices, too. Keep the phone you love, but love it even more. Mediacom Mobile.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back. Dad! You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
We've had some great fun on Surviving Bad today, talking about changes in life and reassessing where life is, and new beginnings and endings. And Tony has been sharing us, I mean, as he always has, a very transparent look at his life and what he's going through. And let's see what insights and inspirations he has to share with us, especially on this issue of sort of staying with and finding your authentic self despite all the changes. Tony?
Yeah, well, Peter, I remember a seminary professor told me many years ago, this is kind of a famous quote, and he said, just remember, autobiography is the art of self-deception. So, the stories we tell about ourselves and who we are often not fully true. I mean, obviously we see our own lives through a lens, and we interpret what happened, and we maybe, and it's happened anytime you've told a story about your childhood and, your sibling says, well, that's not how I remember it,
Yeah.
But there's something else I think maybe for your viewers that you and I can riff on for a minute or two. And this goes back to early postmodern theory in like the 1970s. And a couple postmodern philosophers came up with this idea. It's called the panopticon, which is the all-seeing eye, right? And at the time it was really just a theory. But now here we are, Peter, in the, 2020s. And truly there is a panopticon. I mean, whether it's the camera on your phone or the Nest camera every time you walk up to somebody's door, or the closed circuit TV camera when you're in the bank or when you're in the supermarket, we are on camera all the time. I mean, I can't go onto YouTube without being shown crazy thing that someone got on their phone, or some police body camera images or whatever. I frankly think for younger generations, this is going to make it extraordinarily hard for them to do just what you've said in the lead into this segment: cultivate an authentic self. Because when we're on stage, we act. When we're on camera, we act. We act like we think the camera wants us to act, or the people who are on the other side of that camera watching expect us to act. We put the best foot forward. We're not always our authentic selves. And the more our world is like all the world's a stage, as Shakespeare said it too. We're merely players. I think it's going to take some very deliberate practices for future Iowans and future Americans to live authentic selves in light of the fact that we're always on camera. And that simply fundamentally changes how people act. Just think when you pull your phone up. I mean, every time I pull my phone up to take a picture, my mom takes her glasses off. Oh, I don't want a picture with my glasses on. From those we do it all the time. It was you before we started our recording, making sure your shirt looked good with your suit coat. It's just what we do. It's not bad. It's just natural. But how do we cultivate an authentic self? Well, I think you and I have one thing in common. We get away from the cameras and go out into the woods.
Right. But what's fascinating is, and that's not an easy process for us. We found a way to do it. And you're right. What kids are going through today and what people live today. I mean, I have never understood fully a love-hate relationship, as well as I would say that's what defines social media for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because it exposes me in ways maybe that I don't like, because I'm impulsive. But by being impulsive in person I'm comfortable with that. But with the sort of permanence of this all-seeing eye that follows our lives, it's going to be hard for kids. Maybe that's something that our future writings need to talk about. How to find that authentic self. Maybe that's a nice, sort of nice, calm mission that doesn't put great demands on us acting.
Yeah, and maybe you have to make deliberate choices. So maybe when you go on a canoe trip in the Boundary Waters, you don't take your phone. You don't take a picture of every fish you caught so you can post it on Facebook when you get back to civilization. You just let the experience be what it is.
I don't. I mean, I have to remind myself, I better take some pictures.
Good.
But literally 14 days in a while, if I had 100 pictures, which means 20 or 30 pictures with 2 or 3 shots of each one.
Yeah.
Within like 2 or 3 days of the trip, that's it. And then I'm bored with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that. The law writing, the log.
But we're of that older generation, and maybe that's some of the elder wisdom that we can pass on to the younger generations is you don't need to capture everything on a camera. Some things, some experiences of life can just be experiences in your soul and in your memory.
I sense compared to last year, a greater sense of calmness in you.
I'm not trying to sell a book anymore, Peter.
Well, and we weren't really trying to sell a book. We were trying to sell life lessons, but you're correct. I mean, it sold at least one book. I mean, I bought it when you were at Canucopia,
Yeah.
And it's been through 4 or 5 different readers, but they didn't each buy the book. They shared the book.
Yeah, that's all right.
So the word gets out there. I appreciate what you shared with us today, and I thank you. And if you feel like you want to talk some more about some of this journey, or when you feel there's some things you want to share, please feel comfortable reaching out, because I know people watching this episode are going to enjoy it.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks again for having me back.
All right. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you all for watching. Watch MediaCom MC22 and MC22.net for all our episodes of Surviving Dad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. On MediaCom MC22, your local programming leader.